The Caliber.az news and analysis portal published sensational details of the Brussels meeting announced the day before, revealing the details of how exactly the military-political support of the US and EU to Armenia will be implemented. Although, Caliber.az emphasizes, both Blinken and von der Leyen assured in their conversations with Azerbaijani president that the Brussels meeting is not directed against Azerbaijan and will affect only the economic component. The portal described in detail all 20 points of the agreements between the US, EU, and Armenia. At the same time, the material is divided into subsections: US Armenia, EU Armenia, and US EU Armenia, each of which describes specific agreements. Thus, the US will provide Yerevan with expert support for the strategic defense review and the development of Armenia's new military doctrine. Armenia's Western partners, represented by the US, will have to formulate a doctrine that will be consistent with new geopolitical realities and interests, obviously, not primarily for Armenia, but for the US itself. The US will provide the necessary assistance to significantly develop Armenia's military and defense capabilities and strengthen border control and security, with a special focus on the border with Iran. The US will send analytical teams to Armenia to conduct an on-site assessment of Air Force and air defense capabilities, taking into account Armenia's integration into the United Nations. The US will provide funds to Armenia under the Foreign Military Financing Program to facilitate access to advanced military equipment and the latest technologies. The US Armed Forces will participate in joint military exercises and training with the Armenian Armed Forces to ensure interoperability. The US will work to accelerate the widespread use of GPS technology throughout Armenia. The EU will accept an aid package under the European Peace Facility in support of Armenia's armed forces. The EU supports the decision of the Armenian government to support the Armenian armed forces. Thus, active discussion of the issues related to the Russian military base and the presence of Russian servicemen in Armenia has already started now, long before the expiration of the agreement on the stay of the military base 102 of the Russian Federation on the territory of Armenia. The EU and Armenia discussed the need to reduce Yerevan's dependence on Russian military equipment and technology, and to reduce its reliance on Russian-provided military education and training. The EU and Armenia will cooperate to ensure the long-term presence of the EU mission in Armenia and expand its functions by significantly increasing its staff. The EU will assist Armenia in building defense infrastructure on the border with Azerbaijan, including engineering reinforcements. EU member states and the US will offer assistance in training and equipping personnel and equipment to support the EU's mission in Armenia. The United States and the European Union will establish a joint military and defense task force to coordinate the implementation of Armenia's defense and security sustainability program. In the conclusion of the published piece, Caliber.az emphasizes that the EU and the United States have also agreed to supply lethal and offensive weapons to Armenia. In other words, Yerevan will receive what the West did not provide even to Georgia and refused to provide to Ukraine for many years. The portal emphasizes that bringing the Armenian army in full compliance with NATO standards, ousting the Russian military and pro-Russian elements in the Armenian armed forces, indicates preparation for Armenia's possible accession to NATO in the medium term. At the same time, the West is opening its arms market for Armenia and is itself financing Armenia's purchase of these weapons. Today, Armenia has entered into an extremely risky game, which may end in a great tragedy for it. Like a gambler, Nikol Pashinyan is raising geopolitical stakes in an attempt to win back what he has irrevocably lost, thus exposing his country to even greater danger, Caliber.az writes. He adds that any attempts by external forces to strengthen Armenia as a counterbalance to Azerbaijan are doomed to failure.